We're not exactly still 6 inches too short. It says 10, 23, 56. I thought we were running 5 minutes. We are.
Stepped on and tried to get myself.
I'm Pat Tucker. I work for the National Wildlife Federation in town here, and I've been asked to moderate this session on watchable wildlife in the schools. Ethan, I talked a little bit to him before this program started, and I think what we both discussed and what we both agree on is that this watchable wildlife is a tremendous resource for the schools. Kids and adults, everybody likes living things, and a video is great and photographs are great, but the actual living animal is something else, and that's where watchable wildlife and wildlife viewing comes in. Teachers are really interested in bringing, they know what kids are interested in, and so they're real interested in having us as resource specialists come into their classrooms and give them ideas about how they can bring these living animals, bring their kids in contact with these living animals. The problem is that a lot of us are not teachers, we're biologists and that sort of thing, and we really need to be cooperating with the educators on developing these programs. They know what the kids want, they know how to deliver it to the kids, we know the facts and figures. So Ethan combines his educational background in biology and with his experiences in teaching in both the classroom and outdoors to develop effective curriculums and programs for schools. Ethan now works as a wildlife interpreter for California Fish and Game at the Blue Sky Ecological Reserve near San Diego. And I guess without further ado, go ahead. I would appreciate it if everybody would fill out an evaluation form before you leave this room. They're on the back there.
Thank you, Pat. Good morning. Hopefully as you all came in, you grabbed the handouts along the table in the back of the room. If you didn't, you might want to get up now and get them. You will be using them during the presentation today. How many of you were in the session before this by Patty Riley on education? Okay, Patty Riley talked about, from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, took education and educational program on a really broad level and dealt with some general things that we can do. Today we're going to really narrow that focus down in the next hour and a half and look specifically at how we as wildlife biologists, as wildlife experts, can provide quality programs to schools. Now, how many of you have ever had this experience? You go coffee drinker or tea drinker, you go and you grab the carafe off the electric coffee maker and you go to pour it, and it kind of dribbles down the side and kind of gets on the table and on the foot. And it doesn't matter if it's your first time using that pot of coffee or if it's the fifth time, the third cup in the morning, the fifth week you've had that pot. You grab the pot, you pour it, and the coffee kind of goes down on your clothes. Anybody have that experience? Yeah, okay, we've all had it. I've been developing and implementing, delivering programs for schools for the last 14 years, and I've been doing this at a variety of sites, including parks, museums, wildlife areas, ecological reserves. Now, in that time, my programs, in the early part, my programs were developed on one of a couple things. I would look at the group, and I would choose what we were going to talk about based either on my level of interest or my level of knowledge, and they didn't always mesh, or on a particular aspect of our museum or of our wildlife area. As an example, when I worked at one facility, we had a very nice exhibit on the tule elk. It was in the Central Valley of California, a rather large diorama on tule elk. And every school child, kindergarten through 12th grade, who came through that museum got about a 10 to 20 minute dissertation on tule elk. Where they lived, what happened to them, their life history, what happened when the 49ers came in, the importance of the Native Americans, how they literally came to the brink of extinction, and how now they're recovering. Every kid who came through got a little talk on that. For years I continued developing my programs based on this, either on our facility or on my level of interest, and I thought I did a pretty good job at delivering programs. After all, I have a pretty good rapport with kids, and they would, smile and laugh at the programs. They would enjoy it. Teachers would generally give good evaluations. As I continued giving tours, I did notice a repeating pattern, that I would have the same frustrations at the end of the tour. And if you're doing tours, maybe some of these are familiar to you. For instance, I would get frustrated because the children would come, the students would come completely unprepared. The teacher would not do any type of preparation in the classroom for their visit to my area. So the kids had no knowledge about what we were going to talk about. Likewise, I knew that 99.9% of these people would leave my area and never get another word of it in their classroom. There was no follow-through. So they're getting this 1.5 hour unrelated, or experience unrelated to anything else they were doing in the classroom, and subsequently unrelated to their life in general. They would come to my area completely physically unprepared, educationally unprepared, physically. They would show up, we're ready to go for a hike, and they'd show up in open-toed shoes. We would go for a walk through the slough, through the mud, they'd show up in white tennis shoes. We would be ready to go outside on a cold day, they'd be wearing short sleeves, and I'm from California, short sleeve shirts and short sleeve pants. I also noticed the teachers weren't prepared, and the adults that came with them were unprepared. I kept noticing these same frustrations, yet I couldn't quite put it together. And it's kind of like the coffee pot. No matter how many times I grab the coffee pot, I pour it and it still dribbles down and gets on my pants and on my shoes. And no matter how many times I practice, or I try with the wrist, the quick motions, or try and modify that coffee pot, it's always going to spill coffee. And it's always going to spill coffee because it was designed to not work properly. When the manufacturer of that developed, got the tie in there, huh? When the manufacturer developed that coffee pot, he never thought about the end user. And they used cheap materials or cheap tools. For some reason, they created that lip on that carafe so that the water or the coffee would adhere to the side and would go down the front. I'd always get some coffee in my cup, but I'd always spill a whole lot more on the floor. Well, the same thing is true with our programs. Until we properly design our programs, we're never going to be able to maximize the potential with them. Schools are a tremendous opportunity for us. We have basically a captive audience, 33 kids at a time, or 30 kids, or 20, however many you have at a time. They are already learning sciences. They are there to learn, one, about the biological concepts we're teaching, but also to learn about our areas. There is tremendous opportunity for us as wildlife area people, as biologists, as managers, to look at what the schools are needing from our programs, what the students are already studying, tie our programs into that, to extend their learning process from this 1.5 hour isolated event into 2 or 3 week project. And at the same time that we are assisting the schools in accomplishing their goals, we are also giving them the message about what our agency is, what, in our case, California Department of Fish and Game does, or whatever your agency is. The way to design a program for success, and this is what I'm going to be talking about today, 2 steps, 1 process. Number 1, we have to get inside the head of teachers. We need to know what their educational goals are, what it is they are trying to teach at each grade level. We need to then tie our programs to that. We then need to develop for teachers, make sure that they have the types of resource materials that they need in order to bring you into the classroom for 3 weeks. And I don't mean literally you. I mean whatever your area is, whatever your agency is, to extend that learning process over several weeks. There's a process that we can accomplish all this. It will take some time on your part. We're going to go through it step by step today. A way that you can provide teachers with all this information, a process that will help you, the wildlife specialist, work with them, the educational specialists, to really put together a program that has a lot of impact on children. Today we're going to be talking about these 2 steps, coordinating your program to the learning objectives of schools, to developing teacher materials, and the process. Anytime during my talk today, we will do questions and answers at the end, but anytime during my talk, if you have questions, please just go ahead and throw up your hand. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Before I go any further, one of the handouts you should have gotten today should be yellow, although you might have a white one. The front of it says Watchable Wildlife Educational and Interpretation Goals. If you look at that for a minute, this is what these are the goals of the Wildlife Watch program, Watchable Wildlife program. If you flip to the 2nd page, you have a worksheet. I'm going to put you to work here. I know for people in the back, the type on this is a little hard for you to read. What I'd like you to do is take a minute and do sections 1, 2, and 3 on this. I'm going to go ahead and talk and kind of walk you through it, but just go ahead and do it at your own pace. Number one, every agency has a mission, some sort of goal that we are trying to accomplish. Go ahead and write out what your agency mission is. If you don't know it, improvise. If you can't improvise, write what you think it should be. And if you don't work for an agency, back on the front page, I put the mission of the California Department of Fish and Game. You can work for us today, okay? And you can just be real general in that. You know, you don't have to get real specific. Number two, describe the purpose of your facility. What is the precise goal of where you're at? If you work at a hatchery, your goal may be to produce 500,000 one-pound steelhead trout and 250,000 fingerling salmon. If you work at an eco-reserve, you might have a different goal. Again, if you don't know the goal of your area, I just happen to put the goal of California Fish and Game eco-reserves on the front. You can just kind of glean from that. And then the third thing on the lower portion of the page, on the column, if you're doing programs at your site already, go ahead and list 2, 3, 4 of the major topics or themes that you talk about at your area. If you're not doing programs at your site already, think about what you might be able to talk about. For example, at Blue Sky, we talk about threatened and endangered species. We talk about the value of habitat. You may talk about anadromous fishes. Think about 1, 2, 3, or 4 concepts and just write them down in there real quickly. And then stop, because we'll come back to this in a few minutes. Pat, I'm going to need you over here in just a second. Thanks. There's some pens right there. Where's what? Pens right there. Okay. Okay, take about another half minute. Okay, make sure you're only going to 3. We'll come back to 4 in a few minutes. Just outline right now what your facility is doing or would like to be doing. And if you don't work anywhere, either don't go with California Fish and Game or make up your ideal site. How many of you are currently offering educational programs for schools at your facility? Okay, good. How many of you are actually the people who are implementing those stories? Okay. How many of you know what a science framework is? I'm impressed. Very good. I've got 2 questions here. I'd like to get some information from you. If you can't read them, we're going to start with this question right here, and I'm going to ask you just to throw out some ideas, and Pat can write them down for us. We're a wildlife resource agency. Our primary interest is in preservation, conservation of wildlife and their habitats. Why are we delivering educational programs? What do we stand to gain? How do we justify providing programs to schools? This is a question for you. Yes?
So future generations will conserve habitat also.
Okay. You can paraphrase that any way you want. For future generations, why else are we providing school programs? How do we justify taking staff time away from resource management to deal with a busload of 3rd graders?
It's an investment in making our jobs easier in the future.
Okay, good. How is it an investment? How does it help us?
A more informed public.
Okay, it gets us a more informed public. There was a hand going up. Yes?
They become more responsible in their behavior toward the environment.
Hopefully they become more responsible in their behavior to the environment. How else?
One of the selfish reasons is public relations.
Okay, a selfish reason, public relations. How does it help us with the public?
You're doing something for the schools, people see that.
It gives us a positive image out there, a very visible and very positive image of our agencies. Yes?
It's personally rewarding.
Okay. It's personally rewarding. We're going too fast? No, we don't. Anything else?
We depend on their future support of our program.
Good, excellent. We need their support. These little third graders who come running into us now are going to be the ones who are buying our hunting and fishing licenses in the future. They're the ones who are going to be voting on important bond issues, and they will be the political, the constituent support that we're going to be dependent on in a matter of years. Any other reasons? The one that's been alluded to, but I'd just like to say it a little more clearly, is that it assists us in accomplishing our management goals. Now, when we provide these programs, the next question, and this is why we do it, we as an agency have our own goals, our own reasons for wanting to do this. The schools come to us. Teacher gets off the bus, she gets on the bus actually with 30 some odd kids. It takes a lot of effort on his or her part to get the kids there, to get the bus, to get the funding for the bus, to get them on there, to get the parent permission slips. What do the schools want from us? When they show up, what is it that they're looking for? What do they expect from us? Good, thanks.
We want the expertise, we want the resources.
Are you a teacher?
I'm a teacher.
Okay, good. They want our expertise. I'm glad we have, are any other teachers? Okay, good. They want our expertise, they want our resources. These people are going to be able to check me because I'm going to tell you a lot about what teachers want. And they're going to stand up and tell me if I'm wrong. What else do you think? See, this is a little harder for us because we know the resource. We don't know education. We know about our elk, about our buffalo, about our salmon. We don't know what the teachers need from us. Yes?
Sometimes they don't have a clear idea of what they want.
Okay, sometimes they don't have a clear idea, so they need a little direction from us, perhaps, on what we can offer them.
But it's up to us to provide that background. I think any teacher worth their salt is going to provide that background. And we're going to come to you and say, we are studying this. And
Okay.
you supplement that. I think the teacher should provide that. What you said was missing.
I agree. Her comment was, what's your name?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter said that. Any teacher worth their salt is going to provide the background resources that they need.
I think they should.
I think they should too. However, my experience is that maybe most teachers aren't worth their salt.
That's too bad.
I think it is too bad, and actually I don't believe that.
But as a teacher, I don't either. Most of us are really.
I think, and we're going to talk about that, about teachers, but I would still say that there are many, there's a great opportunity on us as resource people to provide more for you. We'll come back around. If you still disagree at the end, boy, let's hear about it. Yes?
But they're looking for an experience out of the classroom.
They're looking for an out-of-classroom experience out in the resource. Glenn, did you have your hand up?
This is one that our people perceive sometimes. They throw it back to me that this teacher just wants their time to babysit their class.
There are teachers like that who just want an hour and a half break.
We come back away feeling used.
Yeah.
Because of the misunderstandings of some of these other issues.
Anybody else have that experience in their areas? Where kids come totally unprepared, the teacher all but disappears?
A good sign of that is when the teacher leaves when you start your program.
Right. Right. Does that happen? Do teachers really do that? Yeah, unfortunately they do. Okay. Thank you, Pat.
That embarrasses me, though. I think that would be in the minority. We don't find it very often.
No, it is. It absolutely is a minority. We're not making a gross generalization, but it has occurred to some of us. I work for the California Department of Fish and Game. I'm in the Wildlands program. We are the Watchable Wildlife program for the state of California. We are very fortunate. We have 10 sites that we've selected throughout the state, both wildlife areas and ecological reserves. Most of these sites we have staffed interpreters, staffed naturalists on site. We provide educational programs not only to schools but to the general public. At Blue Sky Ecological Reserve, which is in North San Diego County, that's where I'm at, we realize, or we look at schools and say they are going to be our single largest group of people coming through the reserve. I realize that Blue Sky is a tremendous resource to these schools. Blue Sky is no more a great resource to my schools than your area is to your schools. We have everything that the students are going to study in their sciences, everything they read about in their textbook, every great science video they see, every great science-related computer graphics display they do. We've got it, the real thing right on our area. We've got that opportunity for hands-on experiential learning right there on our area. We want the kids to come to us. My ideal program is not to have the kids show up with or without their teacher for an hour and a half. My idea of an ideal program is a 3-week extended process. When the kids arrive at my site, I don't want them arriving for the first time. I want them to have studied both blue sky and whatever concept or theme that we're going to study that day. Whatever we're going to look at that day, I want them to have done that in the classroom for at least a week prior. I also want to know that when they leave, those same concepts and themes that we're going to study are going to be gone over in the classroom. As a matter of fact, when they come to Blue Sky, I don't really want them to come to me to learn about these biological principles. I want them to come to me to explore and to test the theories and concepts that they've already learned in the classroom. I want my area to be that outdoor laboratory for them. I want the teacher to get off the bus with several parents, if possible, who are equally as prepared as the students. So when the kids when their feet hit the ground, literally, I want them to be running. I don't like to spend a lot of my program. I've got an hour and a half. These kids are in school for 13 years. I may get them for 1.5 hours at Blue Sky Reserve. Here I have this wonderful resource. I don't want to waste any of their time. It's much too valuable. I don't want to spend their time telling them about California Fish and Game, about Blue Sky. I don't really want to be going over the guidelines for behavior, you know, the squishing ants and picking leaves and poison oak and all that. I don't mind reviewing it, but I'd like them to know that. I also don't want to waste their time on my site going over the very basic biological concepts. I don't want to have to introduce the idea of habitat. What is a habitat? Well, a habitat is, I want them to come to that so we can do a quick review and then test those theories out in the classroom, or out in our area. Now, there's ways to do this. Education is not a random process. Sometimes we may think it is. When you go back to the very beginning of my talk, when I talked about how we choose our programs, well, we choose it about what we have in our area or what we feel comfortable with. Education, though, is not, and that's rather random, education is not random. Most states set up an outline or a framework that teachers must follow in their teaching. And there's still a lot of room for creativity among the teachers, but there's still a framework. The state will develop, generally, a board of education. The Board of Education then divides learning into a group of subject areas such as math, science, social science, art. You can go on and on. They then will take each subject area and break it down. If you look at one of your other handouts, it says across the top, Science Framework, California State Department of Education. Now, I'm from California, so I'm going to give you all examples from California. You're going to have to go back to your state and find these for your area. Now, what I've just put up, if you're close enough that you can read it, you'll notice that it's a little bit different from what you're holding in your hand. California, science is divided into 3 great areas, 3 large areas. Physical sciences, earth sciences on the second page, and then life sciences. Then each division of science is then further divided into 3 to 7 concepts. If you turn to your third page, you'll see life sciences. Life sciences then gets divided into living things, cells, genetics, and evolution, and ecosystems. Then from there, each of these larger concepts is divided down into a sub-concept. And you can see, I'm going to follow the one for ecosystems because if you were to look at your Watchable Wildlife goals that you just looked at a minute ago, you'd find that this is where the Watchable Wildlife goals fit hand in glove with the ecosystem goal. Under ecosystems, they then develop 4 sub-concepts. What are ecosystems? How does energy flow through them? How does ecosystems change? And what are the responsibilities of humans towards ecosystems? If you flip one more page, they then divide this a little bit more. And I've just broken down the top one. What are ecosystems and how do organisms interact in ecosystems? The state, when they develop these frameworks, they then will put a narrative paragraph on what will be covered at each grade level. Actually, not at each grade level, at each group. Here I've written down for you kindergarten through 3rd grade through 6th grade. It does continue with a narrative like this for 6 through 9 and 9 through 12. I've omitted it here just in the sake of space, and I don't want to copy more pages. Where this fits into to us is this is a framework, a general outline for all teachers in California. They need to be introducing these concepts to their students at these grade levels. Can you see where this might be helpful to you as someone providing an educational program to students? This is beginning to tell us what concepts, what sub-concepts, and what themes are appropriate at different age levels. Now if you look at the pink piece of paper I gave you, this might even be more useful depending on your area. Each school district will then take, we're not going to get all of this on there. That's okay, you've got it in front of you. Each school district will then take that overall framework and they break it down into the very specifics of what students will be learning at each grade level. They look at ecosystems, for instance, or life sciences, and they just break it out across the category and they get very specific as to what the student will learn at each grade level, how deep they'll go and in what order. This is called the scope and sequence. This scope and sequence is put out by the school district I deal with, Poway Unified. Every district will have a different one. Since 90% of my programs are based on Poway, or Service Poway Unified, this is what I'm using as my guiding model. Now if you look at this, see if you can see how it starts to come into light to you. Across the top, it's going to tell me, it breaks down, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. Then it begins to tell me the concepts on the top and then the sub-concepts that each grade level will be studying, major learning units that they're going to be studying, and then on the other side it deals with overall themes. So here I am, I'm a wildlife biologist. I have school kids coming to me. I'm trying to develop my programs around what those schools are already studying in the classroom, about what those children are already learning. This becomes an becomes an invaluable tool. It tells me exactly where to focus my programs. If what we're trying to do at Blue Sky, we are developing a series of programs. We're very ambitious there, for the better, for the worse. We want children to be able to come to us from kindergarten through grade 12, never have the same program twice. We want to have a set of standardized tours. And I say standardized, I mean uniform. I don't mean canned programs or written scripts. I want every kindergarten to get a program on the same topic and theme as every other kindergartner. I want a first grader to get a separate program from kindergartners, but again, every first grader will get the same program. Second graders, third graders, fourth graders. We use this in combination with the science framework to help us determine what each topic will be. For example, as we develop our programs for third graders, I can read across this, then go back to my area and I can learn what those students are already going to be studying in their classroom. Did I mention the Thule elk a few minutes ago? I did, good. The Thule elk exhibit at that one museum was a very good exhibit. And it wasn't that we shouldn't have been interpreting that Thule elk exhibit, but we were interpreting the wrong things to the wrong grade levels. This scope and sequence will let me look down on it, and I can now tell you that if I had a group, you look at it and tell me, if I had a group of kindergartners coming into my area and I had Thule elk exhibit or I had real life Thule elk, what should we be discussing with kindergartners about Thule elk? This is a question for you. What?
They're living.
Okay, one, that they're living animals as opposed to non-living. What else?
Their life cycle.
Their life cycle. Would it be appropriate to talk about their migration patterns? Where would migration fit in? What grade level would that fit?
Adaptations in the 6th grade.
Okay, maybe adaptations of the 6th grade. Talk about migration patterns to a kindergarten. You're talking about a kid who knows the classroom, home, and the supermarket, and the park maybe. Movement doesn't go anywhere with them. The Thule elk would work with any grade level, but different aspects. Kindergartners, if we want to just stick with themes, we may want to talk about the scale and structure of Thule elk. How big are they? What are their body parts? We get into Thule elk with first graders, we may want to talk about the patterns of change. How does the individual animal change? How do their patterns of growth change? We get into second grade, maybe we want to talk about the energy flow, where they get their energy, how they disperse it. You get into fourth grade, maybe you want to talk about evolution and stability of the Thule elk. Or you could bring it over here to the concept. Living and non-living things can be observed. How are Thule elk different from things that are non-living? Get into first grade, living things have needs for survival. What do Thule elk need to survive? Am I doing an okay job at explaining this, or are we losing it? It's getting quiet back there, and I'm getting some looks like days, and I want to make sure we have it. I'm almost halfway with my time. Now, depending on where your area is, either the scope and sequence of the science framework will be an incredibly valuable tool at helping you design your programs. At Blue Sky, most of our programs are based on this one school district, so I follow this like a Bible. If you have many school districts that you're servicing, well, then you come back to your overall document. Now, every state should have a science framework, and I say that no. Anybody in here from Ohio? Ohio does not have a science framework. I have no idea why. I have no idea how they teach science in Ohio, but they don't have one. You can get these through your state office of education. Call them up. Now, I've given you 3 pages of the science framework. This is what California's framework looks like. This is brand new. It's fascinating reading, and I say that with all sincerity. It talks about a lot of aspects of science, about how to teach it. As a naturalist and as an interpreter, I was just amazed reading this book. It's a dynamite document. If you're not from California, get your own state's book. The scope and sequence, very easy to get hold of. Talk to any teacher who comes to your area. Go down to the local school and say, hey, do you guys have a scope and sequence? This one is in a matrix format. It's a little more complex than it necessarily needs to be, but that's just how they do things in the Poway School District, for better or for worse. That's step 1. Using that framework, using the scope and sequence, we can suddenly develop programs that match what the students are doing in their classroom. We now know that with no help on the part of the teacher, with no prior contact between us and the teacher, we're going to present a program that matches what the students are already learning. Any first grader who gets off the bus for our area, if they've never been there, they've had no prior lesson in their classroom, we're going to be talking at our area about the same themes that they're learning in the classroom. We're building in reinforcement. So now we've got the schools here and us here, and we're riding in tandem with them. Yes?
How do you know if they've covered that particular subject area yet?
You
Or
don't.
not have gotten to it?
They may not have gotten to it. If your group is coming in September, they may not have. If they come in June, assuming you're still on a 9-month program, of course, you don't know. You could check with your schools to find out when they're teaching it. You may be doing the first step, and what they get in the classroom is a follow-up. You may be doing, they may have already had it, and you're doing the follow-up. But that's the first step. That gets you riding in tandem with them. What I want to do now is take our schools and our resource agencies and put us together like this, so that we can move together as a unified force in teaching our students. And to do that, we then need to provide our teachers with the background information that they need to teach your subject, your concept, your area, your values, whatever, in their classroom. This is just one example, the Nimbus Teachers Packet. You all got a handout. I wanted to give everyone one of these, but 1, they're out of print, and 2, they're about 110 pages, and I just could not justify Xeroxing all that for you. Sorry. And it doesn't even do you any good to write to us, because we just literally don't have any more. But if you pick up your copy of this, I copied off just a few pages. Third page in. These are the types of materials, it's a table of contents, that we feel are important for teachers to know. Background information. I want teachers in Poway, the teachers who come to Blue Sky, I want them to have background information specifically on California Fish and Game, specifically on Blue Sky Ecological Reserve, and then specifically on the theme or concept their grade level will be teaching. They've got it in the classroom. If the teacher has a thorough understanding of it, he or she is then going to be able to present it to their classroom. I want them to know things about our area. This is a two-way process. I want to help them as much as I can, but at the same time, I want to help myself. So I want to give them the hints and guidelines they need for our area. You flip through a few pages, you'll come to a stat sheet, just, the interesting kind of things kids like to know. You'll find a page that says tips for a successful trip. This is to accomplish my goals and their goals. This is a checklist for teachers of what they can do to prepare their students. Select one of the activities and readings. Do some activities with your class before you come to our area. Select 1 or 2 more of the activities and do them with your class after you leave our area. Visit our area, visit our hatchery without your class so the teacher is very familiar with the area. If he or she is familiar, it will make their learning experience with us much better. Now I will say Nimbus, we provide non-guided tours. So this pre-visit is even more important to them. It goes through a list of items a teacher can do to prepare their students. It also goes through, in the next page I've given you are guidelines for groups. What behavior do we expect of them? Is it okay to throw rocks in the ponds? Is it okay to catch snakes? Is it okay, whatever it is? How do you want them to dress? How do you want them to be when they get off the bus? This packet, the full packet, then also contains, along with the background information, we then have put in many activities across different curriculum areas on our area. This one focuses on anadromous fish. So we've looked at existing materials, existing curriculum, and we've put in activities in the math, in the art, in the science that will help the teacher in the classroom teach these concepts so that when the kids get off the bus, they already have an idea of what's going on. Now, I worked at Nimbus Hatchery for 5 years. We get very high visitation, and it all comes in a very small section of the year. The first year we were there, the school buses would roll up. We could not give guided tours, but we thought it was important enough that we would get on the bus and give them a 5-minute intro to the area. We would get on average of every day between like 9:30 and 11, we'd get anywhere from 10 to 40 buses. So we had to move quickly. Yeah, well, we would get on the buses. The first year we get on the bus, and maybe you've had this experience. You say, usually when you start a tour, your group gets there and you say, "Hi, my name is Ethan, welcome to Blue Sky Ecological Research." You probably don't say Ethan, but whatever you say. We would get on these buses, and I tried a trick, and you should try this. We get on and say, "Hi, my name is Ethan, I'm really glad you're here. Where are you today?" I'll bet you if you do that 90% of the time, you're going to get 30 to 32 blank faces, kids saying, "Huh? I didn't know you were going to ask me any questions." And then the teacher's in the back very embarrassed because she realized, or he realizes, maybe they didn't do everything. We developed this packet, gave the information out to teachers. We made them go through a training workshop to get this packet. The next year we could get on those same buses, and we still had the 32 blank faces at times. But suddenly you could get on the bus and say, "Where are you today?" "Oh, we're at the Nimbus and American River Fish Hatcheries." "Oh, really? What are you going to see today?" And we would get first, second, and third graders telling us about the life cycle of salmon and steelhead and any other animals that they were going to be seeing on their trip. We felt this was a great success. We're trying to get this reprinted. We're also trying to move to this concept in many other areas. Questions about this? Questions about background materials for teachers? Yes?
Do you ever get language arts, scope and sequence, language arts activities?
At Blue Sky, yes. At Blue Sky, we have the framework and scope and sequence across the board. We talked about the science framework. Every learning area has a scope and sequence and a framework. At Blue Sky, we're trying to get into as many of them as we can. And as a matter of fact, if you look, when I was going through this little handout on Nimbus Hatchery, the last thing that I stopped at was webbing as a teaching tool, and I recommend later you look at this, because what they're doing and what the science framework for California talks about is not teaching our subjects like isolated events, not teaching science and then putting it away, and teaching math and putting it away, and teaching English and putting it away, but integrating all areas together. So, yes?
Do you include copies of all these Project Wild activities, or do you just reference the Project Wild?
No. Everything that you're seeing in the table of contents is included. We did include many Project Wild activities. We definitely got permission from anyone who had a copyright on their material. And actually, when we did this packet, we even used some copies from private publications, such as dog-eared publications. And they gave us permission to use it free of charge.
Do you ever spend any time training your resource people on how to communicate with K through 12?
Well, define resource people.
Folks like yourself, myself, hatchery personnel.
Question is, do we spend time training our resource people? Yes, we do train our resource people. Now keep in mind, with California, we have a whole separate branch, the Wildlands program, that does our interpretation. And we try and divide it along there. At the hatchery, one of the goals of putting interpreters in place was to keep the hatchery people on task. They were trying to operate a hatchery. They were having 250,000 people show up, and it was interfering with their work. We put interpreters online to help them keep on task and to put us dealing with the public. But yes, we do provide a lot of cross-training in our areas. Yes, one last question.
She said the magic word back there, Project Wild. That's a national concern.
Absolutely.
And I think you must also make use of those facilitators. And they are the liaison between your agency and the teachers.
Mm-hmm. Project Wild, if you're not familiar, I don't have any copies of it with me. It is a project, a series of 3 curriculum guides that was put together years ago. I guess it's 5 or 10 years old at this point. It teaches wildlife values to school children. K through 6, there's a K through 6 guide, 6 through 12 guide, and then an aquatics guide. If you are unfamiliar with Project Wild, I suggest when you go back you start asking about it. There are training workshops, they're like $5 or $10. They take 6 hours, you'll have a great time, and you'll get the curriculum materials for free. Now, we've talked about the 2 steps here. Correlating your programs with schools so that just by doing the programs, you're teaching what they're already doing in the classroom. Then we've talked a little bit about developing these materials. Well, the question comes up and say, yeah, right. You know, I'm a wildlife biologist. I'm not an educator. I don't know how to develop these programs. I don't have the time to do that. Well, there's a way to do it, and there's actually a very smart way, and it comes very simply from beginning to ask the right questions of the right people. Now, in developing this packet or any other packet, we are not generally the experts in education. However, we have the experts in education. They come to our site, and they come to our site with 32 kids behind them on a school bus. We call them teachers. In developing materials or even programs for schools, it's important to start talking to these people, the customers of our services. We are a service provider. These are the beneficiaries of our service. If we provide a good service, they'll come to us. If we don't, they may not. What I like to do is start by talking to the teachers on my area. Now, I don't talk to any teacher. I look at their class and I look at what they're doing. If their class is one of these that's running through your area and rampaging it, I'm not going to learn a whole lot talking to that teacher. If I ask him or her what they would like from me, I'm not sure I can deliver it anyway. What I do is I look for the teachers that have the kids that are on task. The kids will get off the bus, and you probably have these whether you're doing tours or not. Some kids will just get off the bus and they'll have little clipboards and they're doing a project or doing art, or you can see there's some good learning going on in some manner. Those are the teachers to begin talking to. Now, one of the other handouts I gave you is called Watchable Wildlife in Schools, a Design for Success. I believe it's on white paper. Now this is, I call it a step-by-step process. However, you could do these processes in a variety of steps. You want to develop educational programs for your area. You want to work with schools. First thing to do is sit down with your own staff and determine, what is it that you want to do? What are your goals? Do you want to deal with school kids? Do you want to deal with primary? Do you want to deal with secondary? How many kids do you want? How many school groups can you accommodate? What are your resources? What does your agency or site have to offer? What mandates do you have? Look within first to find out what you need to be doing. If you have an ecological reserve, if you have a highly protected area, you may have different requirements than, say, a wildlife area or a park or recreation area. Begin looking at other nature and interpretive facilities. Start going around in your community and finding out who is delivering a similar service. Find out what they're doing, how they do it. What are the benefits that they're doing? What areas are they covering? What problems are they having? Are they working with the schools? Write down what you like about their programs. Write down what you don't like. Also, take careful note about what they're covering. If they're covering a specific area, there's no reason for you to cover it. If there's only 2 outdoor facilities in your town or in your county, and they cover bison migration, then there's no reason for you to offer a similar program. There are too few of us across this country for any of us to be duplicating in a small geographical area. Next, begin talking to the educational community, and I really emphasize I did not list this in order. When I wrote it out, I kind of went from top to bottom. Start with the state, go down to the teachers. Unfortunately, upper level administrators, this isn't true in California Fish and Game, I want you to know, but I've been told in some agencies, sometimes in schools, the upper level of administrators don't always agree or say things that the line teachers agree with. At the Department of Fish and Game in California, we all speak in one unified voice and in harmony, and we begin every morning by holding hands across the state and singing "We Are the World." But I'm told not all agencies are like that.
You lost your credibility there.
Lost my credibility there, huh? Begin talking to those hotshot teachers who come on. I think that's really your best place. Say to them, what is it that you want from us? How can we provide you with a good program? Look at what their kids are already doing. Many times, you'll see kids getting off the bus, and they'll already have something that that particular teacher has developed for your site. Ask them for a copy of it, and then ask for the teacher's name. Question?
The hotshot teachers are already doing a lot of things right.
That's right.
Do you feel like you're missing an audience by not approaching those not so hotshot teachers and finding out what it takes to get them one little step above where they're at?
Absolutely. The hotshot teachers are the ones who are already doing what you want to be doing, what you should be doing. In California, a real good example of that is we had some hotshot teachers up in north part of our state who were they were getting eyed eggs from a hatchery and raising them in the classroom. Eyed salmonid eggs, either steelhead or salmon, raising them in the classroom. Well, this is one teacher who then got a grant, wrote a whole curriculum on it, and now it's taking off as a statewide program. With or without the support of Fish and Game, whoops, you can't cheat. See, whether or not Fish and Game ever got involved, and we did get involved in that program, these teachers developed something very good, and they're willing to share it. They're not in it generally for the money, and they're not in it to be proprietorial. They want to share it. They want people doing it. As you begin to deal with these groups, with the Office of Education, the State Office of Education, then come down, your county should have an Office of Education, begin talking to your local districts, begin talking to your local principals. If you don't know the right questions to ask, I've included a few here for you. If nothing else, get a pen and a paper, walk down to your local elementary school and plop down in the principal's office and say, "Hi, my name's Ethan. I work right down the road here. We'd really like to provide you guys with some programs. We'd really like to help you teach your sciences at our areas. What can we do?" You'll probably get a golden reception from them. My experience in dealing with principals and dealing with schools is too few people ever offer them anything, and they're more than willing to, one, allow you to offer them something, but also then to offer their services in return. As you begin talking to these principals, as you begin talking to teachers, my experience has been that many of them are going to say, you know, I'll go and I'll talk to a teacher's meeting and they'll start passing me notes, and I'll read the notes and it says, "I'd like to help you develop this curriculum. I'd like to help you do this." What we're doing is we're taking what the hotshot teachers are doing on an individual basis and we're standardizing it, making it available for every teacher. And then begin looking at what your educational guidelines are. What is your state science framework? What are your local districts, scopes, and sequences? These can be really well evaluated by your teachers. They may not, you may muddle through them because you don't have the educational background. Right now, as we speak, it's about 10, 11 o'clock in California. I have a group of teachers who are meeting in a school in Escondido, California, and they are reviewing the scope and sequence for Poway Unified for the Catholic schools. They're reviewing the goal statement for Fish and Game for Blue Sky Ecological Reserve, and by 1 o'clock this afternoon, they are going to be able to hand me a piece of paper that says what they would like us to be providing to their schools, what types of programs I should be offering to them. That's pretty nice. I'm doing this in Escondido, California, but I'm in Montana. Now, I may not agree with or like everything they say, so it is a give and take process, and we will work together with it. I find it truly amazing that I can be doing this from so far away. I almost lost the next step to our process. Then you want to start working. You've done all your work on your own. You dealt with your agencies. You dealt with your teachers as individuals. Now start getting those groups together. Find those teachers who want to help you, the principals, the educators, the other people from agencies, and start working with them. We held a meeting a month ago at Blue Sky Ecological Reserve, and I outlined for these teachers. I had a group of 5 teachers. I'm trying to do programs for K through 8th graders. I can't do that in a year. So this year we're doing a program for kindergarten through 3rd and 3rd through 6th graders. One outline for the younger, one outline for the older. Next year we're going to fill in some of those gaps. The following year we're going to fill in more of the gaps until we have a complete set of K through 8 programs correlated to what they're doing. We sat down with teachers and we went over this. What are my goals? We gave them a grand tour of the area. I wanted to know what they wanted. We developed a time frame. These are the steps we have to take. What order should we do it in? Let's set some benchmarks. And I let them tell me when we thought we could start accomplishing some of our goals. We began, and this is where we're at now. We outlined the science framework, and then we developed the themes. This is what we're doing now, developing the themes and concepts by grade level. We then determined, as a group, what each unit would contain. For each grade level, I said, I want to have a program. I want to have a separate tour for kindergarten, for 1st, for 2nd, for 3rd, for 4th. You may not want to get that detailed. You may just want to go K through 3. You may want to go 3 through 6. However you want to do it. We decided what information we wanted each packet to contain. We wanted every teacher who was going to come to Blue Sky to get, number 1, an outline of the tour. So he or she could read about it beforehand so that he or she could prepare their class. We wanted them to have all the background information they needed on that concept. I do not want the teacher to have to spend their time looking through encyclopedias, magazines, and textbooks to find out what a habitat is, what an ecosystem is, what the pattern of change is. I can just give it to them. We can have one teacher write it, slip it into the packet, and it's suddenly available for all of them. We want them to have the tips for a successful trip. You're going to be walking through mud, have kids wear boots. You're going to be walking through chaparral, make sure the kids are wearing long pants. You can buy fish food for a nickel, have kids bring nickels. Little things that'll help make their day better. Guidelines for behavior, what you expect of them, the activities, the pre and post visit activities, so that you know the teacher can be doing these fun things, and a lot of our activities come right out of Project Wild. You don't have to rewrite curriculum. You don't have to invent a wheel. There's a whole lot of good stuff out there in environmental ed. Find it, adapt it, get permission, and use it. If it's copyrighted, make sure you get permission, especially as an agency. We also include readings for students. Some teachers I found won't do anything to prepare their kids. These are the teachers who are not worth their salt. They will show up and they don't want to do anything beforehand to get their kids ready. Even Xeroxing a page might be too much for them. So for them, you provide the papers, the readings, the worksheets, the handouts that they can literally Xerox and hand out. Other teachers will go to any length to teach their students. They are the ones who are worth their salt, who will raise salmon in their classroom, and trust me, that's a big project. For those people, you want to be able to give them some of the activities. You also want to be able to give them a bibliography of resources so that they can go a little further than maybe you're going with most of your teachers. See the example from Nimbus. I only have 3 copies of this Nimbus Hatchery packet. So if you'd like, at the end of the presentation, come up, flip through it. We can start a list if you'd like, if we ever reprint them. We are looking at reprinting them now, but we don't have a set date. From there, what we do is we break into small groups. We have 3 teachers working on my K through 3 curriculum. We have 3 teachers working on our 4 through 6. Large groups don't work, but we do want small groups because more than one person does get the job done a little better. They then develop the goals and objectives for each unit, for each lesson plan. They then develop the materials, and then you get into a really important part. You develop it, you review it, you field test it, you re-review it, you revise it, you field test it again. That revise and field test stage is very, very important. You've got to work your bugs out before you get into print. Once you put it into print, it's set, at least until you run out of those 5,000 or 10,000 or 100 copies, whatever you do. Using this process, we can very effectively bring our areas into the classroom. We can work together with educators. We can not only work together in tandem, but really work with them to bring our areas, our concepts into their classroom. We create a more effective learning unit for the students. The students are the real winners here. They're the ones that come out with the real comprehensive learning program. We also are assuring that what we're doing is helping teachers accomplish their mandated learning requirements. We're also promoting our own agency at the same time. I want to thank you very much for allowing me to come in and speak. I do have time for some questions, I believe. Yes, one in the back.
Have you done anything with pre-site orientation videos?
No. Question is, how's that for a quick answer, huh? Have we done anything with pre-site orientation videos? No, I have not. Have you? Tell us about it.
It's just we formulated it based on feedback from teachers in a workshop type environment. And we got it really good. It's just get produced and
Any way that you can introduce teachers or students to your area is a good one. If you've got the resources, the talent, and the money to do a video, that's an excellent idea. And there are many ways, if you don't have the time or the talent or the money, to go into the community, go to your community colleges where they're teaching filmmaking or video making, whatever they call it now, and see if you can get a college group to do it, and then find a local service club to fund it. They can be very effective. It allows the children inside the classroom to anticipate what they'll be doing outside. Do you have a question?
Do you all offer services to inner city schools?
Yes. I'm sorry. The question is, do we offer services to inner city schools? We provide services to everyone. Some of our programs focus more to inner city than others. Probably our group that works the most with inner city, and I don't know, Bob, maybe you can help me here, might be Gray Lodge or Elkhorn Slough, simply because they're located more toward the inner city. Inner city groups have different needs. You know, if you're here for the speaker before us, she said look at each group and find out specifically what their needs are. There's another question, yes.
Well, I have more of a comment than a question.
Okay.
There's a real lesson here in those of us that are involved in self-guided experiences in areas. You know, when in any area, we're going to have a mix of those people that come in unorganized groups and families and all that kind of stuff, and maybe some organized groups. The biggest thing is we don't interpret to kids, we interpret to adults 99% of the time. And then even using this concept of looking at the age groups of the kids and developing some of those same messages that those kids are going to pick up bits and pieces of in school, so that we kind of tie that together in a little tighter bundle.
That's right. The comment was, if you didn't hear it, that at a lot of our unguided sites, we often interpret to adults and not the children. And you can take these same concepts of finding out what students will be studying and tie them into your self-guided interpretive materials. It's a very good idea. Now, these steps I've gone through, at Blue Sky, we're looking at guided programs only. At Nimbus Hatchery, we went through the same process for self-guided programs. I think this works even better with self-guided programs because that's where you have more of the need to prepare the students and the teacher. Any other questions? Any other comments? Any other good jokes? Great.
Here's one of the best presentations, I think.
Well, thank you, Glenn. I planted that. The one thing, if you leave this room with no other thought in your mind, this is the one thing I want you to know. Talk to educators. Go back to your areas. If you develop a program, talk to the teachers, talk to the people, find out what they need, what their mandates are, then combine your programs to fit into what they're doing. My name and number is in your little packet of information I gave you. I'll be more than glad to spend as much time as I can on the phone. If you've got a big budget, fly me out to your area and I'll consult with you right there on site, especially if you're in Alaska. I'd love to come up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.